Welcome to Awkward Conversations. We are Seth and Saundra done, and we're just here having some fun, having a conversation, and enjoying the opportunity to bring you in on that. And we're bringing up things that are a bit challenging. That's thus awkward, and challenging in a variety of ways, right? Maybe between us, maybe in culture, maybe in religion. Awkward things. So a month or two ago, we did a episode on fighting.
Yes, a month ago.
We did an episode on fighting. We're going to follow up on it because we got some great comments, right? Some great thoughts. And we'll reference that here in a minute, but I want to bring something up real quick. I think when it comes to fighting, it's really easy to think fighting should never happen. Now, not if you're this one. Okay, this one would not agree with that. But in my world, I was not exampled fighting growing up and that kind of thing. I mean, I was even thinking back to fighting was not something, I wasn't involved in the typical playground brawls, among boys. I mean, we were aggressive and all, but, fighting was just not a thing. So I find it interesting. Jesus fought. Jesus was a fighter. And I think about him in the temple. I know we could come up with other examples of this too, but in the temple, what did he do? He went in. He was like, he messed the place up. You can't flip tables where people's product is on it and so forth and not make that's a fight. Mm-hmm. That's a big mess. Yeah. And I think we often look at that and we think, well, Jesus was mad because they were selling things in the temple. I'm not saying that doesn't have some value or some truth to it. But I often think what Jesus was really bothered by was their heart. I don't know, maybe it was wrong to be selling in the temple. Maybe that was the issue. But the big issue is they weren't in the temple because they loved the Father, because they were there to worship, because they loved people. They were there to make a buck. And that was their whole motivation. And Jesus just couldn't take it anymore, so he flipped tables. I'm not going to pretend to say I even completely understand all that. But,
so I think when it comes to fighting, we have to be aware of what are we fighting for?
Sure.
What is the purpose and point to this?
Yeah.
Seth would tend to never fight. I would tend to fight too much, right? Yeah. Like there's always something in me that's just like, let's go. Like, I don't care what you want to talk about, what you want to fight about it. Let's go. I'm ready. And I don't know where that came from, how that started in me, but I won't tend to pull away and not fight, whereas he tends to pull away and not fight. But I think one of the things that we have to recognize is, when is it worth the fight? And you have to recognize that as a parent. You have to recognize that as a couple. You have to recognize that in your job, with a friend, etc. Like, is this worth the fight? Yeah. What is the point and purpose of this fight?
Because there's an end? Yeah. Is that what you mean?
Yes. What is is there potential for a good outcome?
There you go. Yeah.
Also, though, there is a point of fighting because this is what I stand for and believe for, and I'm determined to see something affected because I feel so strongly about this. I think,
which is still a good end, though.
Jesus, I don't think, that the throwing the tables in the temple, I don't even think that was like him expecting it to never happen again.
No. The good end wasn't that.
His point was, you guys are messed up and I need to do something extreme to show you how messed up you are. Yeah. And I do think there are times to start a fight or be in a fight because you have a strong motivation, a strong cause or purpose. But I think knowing ahead of time, is it worth the fight? And if so, for what purpose? Yeah. What's the reason for it?
Yeah, because you think about the good end, the good purpose, the good reason for Jesus to fight in the temple might have been because of the individual hearts that went, wait, he's got a point here. Mm-hmm. He's right. And they made an adjustment. Yeah. Right. And it needed, for whatever reason, I don't think we understand the complete, the culture and the whole scenario there. Yeah. I don't think we get it all. So Jesus knew it had to go that extreme. Yeah. But so you bring this forward even today and say our politics. Mm-hmm. I don't really care if you're Republican or Democrat or independent. That you look at the whole political culture across all belief systems and certainly across, I almost said all denominations. maybe that is one of those things that's true there too.
Yes.
We're fighting just to fight, and there is no healthy end. In fact, we're pitting each other against each other just for the point of doing it. Right? Because I might get noticed more if I can get this fight going. I think a lot of that goes on in politics, and that faux pas right there might not have been such a faux pas. I think it happens amongst us as churches.
Yeah.
We create division just so that you'll recognize me, or for some other unhealthy end.
And that was one of the comments on the video of fighting. The last episode that we did was the idea of we have these fights just for no reason except to fight. And he even said, a house divided against itself will not stand.
Yeah.
And I think that's scriptural. It's true. So knowing what you're fighting for and what is the point and purpose, and that it has a productive end. It happens on social media.
It
happens
does.
in politics. It happens on religion. It happens in marriages, on sex. It happens, not just marriages. It happens, in marriages, raising kids. It happens where you fight your kids on stuff that is absolutely pointless. I remember with my son, like, he would not keep things picked up and clean, and it drove me nuts. And I kept trying to get him to keep his room clean, and I finally went, you know what? You can have your room as messy as you want. I don't care. We'll keep the door closed. The rest of the house you keep picked up because it's my space too. But your room is your space. So that was one of those moments where I'm like, that's not worth that fight.
Right.
So it's worth the fight for my whole house where we're all sharing space. But if you don't care in your room, that's fine.
Well, and why was it worth the fight?
It wasn't worth it. That's what I'm saying.
No. That's what I'm saying. Why was it not worth the fight? Why was it worth giving that up so he could have it? What did you gain by doing that?
Peace.
Between you,
between
and
me and him.
So it was relational health.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean,
Was
he's
the
a kid.
gain.
I'm the parent. I could still keep enforcing that.
Sure, you
have
could.
been, but to me, it was twofold, maybe three. But peace, so that we're not fighting about something as stupid as keeping your room clean or the house clean.
Right.
Two, it was this place of like, I'm going to give you a little bit of independence here.
Yeah.
Like you're growing up, you're
think
maturing. You need to know what you love and don't love.
Right.
And so it was also an element of, I'm going to help you learn what you like and don't like by letting you do in your room the way you want to do.
Yeah. The thought of pick your battles, of course, comes to mind. And I think, for me, the lesson has been there are battles worth picking.
Yes.
Because I wouldn't have picked my battle in that. Normally you think of that in terms of pick your battles. In other words, limit them. But in my case, it was do more, fight more, for those things that you want.
Care about.
And she probably still would tell you, I don't fight, but I do more than I used to. And I do voice my opinion and stand for things more than I used to.
Yeah.
Because I'm picking those battles. But there is still a lot of times when I'm like, it doesn't matter. It's not worth it. So I think there is that element of personality that comes in to these things. But for example, we're going to do an episode here soon of an awkward conversation around God is in control. You're going to see some fight in me. Can I say this? This is an awkward conversation, but it pisses me off that people are experiencing what they are by having wrong belief systems. That's where I'll get fiery, right? And I mean, there's other places too.
And it's not just that people are experiencing things because of their beliefs. To me, what pisses me off about that topic is you are putting terrible character on God. You're saying that God is this, because he's in control, which we'll get into in that video.
For sure.
But it's so frustrating to me that you malign the character of God. When you malign the character of God, I will have something to say.
Yeah.
Because that's one of those things that I'm like, no. And does God need me to stand up for him? No. But do I want to? Yeah. Because he's God and he's amazing and he's loving and kind and good and all the things. And then when we tell people, oh, he's in control and all this crap is happening. So
I think people need us to fight though, right? We need to fight for each other.
Yes.
We need to fight for things that we value.
Each other on occasion.
Sure. Because there are things worth fighting for.
Yes.
She does have different viewpoints on things than I do, and it's worth communicating those. And I know she believes this. I'm not sure yet what I believe, but she thinks that if you fight, you're going to get to things that bring value and depth to the relationship that are healthy. That you're not going to get to if you don't fight. But you have to fight well and to an end goal.
Properly,
sure.
There's a way to come to a place.
And I think I believe her, but I'm not 100% sure yet. So we'll see,
I think this is actually really important. I've been in situations where I have had fights that were demeaning, tear you down, are difficult.
Obviously.
You walk away feeling terrible.
Oh, man.
That's not the kind of fighting I'm talking about.
No.
I'm talking about the kind of fighting where you have enough fight and you push through that until there's peace in it. And that's the problem. Most people just fight, then they walk away, and then they isolate, and then they move on. And there's no resolution.
Yeah, never come to that healthy end game.
Fight through all the way through until you understand why that's whatever the thing is, why money is so important to you.
Sure.
Because you're trying to protect me, take care of me, provide for my future, blah, blah, blah. Right. Like all of that. That wasn't a blah, blah, blah. That was just a da, da, da. But if we're having that kind of a fight, that kind of a conversation, and we don't get to the point of why it's so important to you, then it's probably pointless and I don't ever learn anything from it.
Yeah.
But if we'll push through the fight until I understand why and where you're coming from and why it's so important.
Yeah.
And vice versa, why it's so important for me to, whatever. If we don't fight that through to the productive end, then we're not gaining any sort of intimacy. But if we can fight through that and get to that productive end, then we're gaining intimacy in that I understand you better, you understand me better.
Yeah.
And there's value in that.
And I'm sure the same thing then, when you think about that fighting through to that end, you've unpacked it relationally. The same thing happens politically. The same thing can happen in business. The same thing can happen in culture. We live in Colorado. We both know. I was born and have lived most of my life in Colorado. Saundra came at a very young age, so you've spent most of your life in Colorado. We love this state. We love the mountains. We love so much about it, and yet our state is confused, and there's so many issues that I'm like, I can leave, I can go somewhere else, or I can stand my ground and I can say no where I can. But there are those elements too of things change around you, and you kind of have to pick those battles and say, well, that one's not worth fighting, but this one is. So the danger for me, you may be similar, would be not fighting. Not finding those things that I'm like, this is of such great value. I'm going to push through to that healthy end. And then probably there are those that maybe you could say, maybe I'll tone it down just a little. But getting through to that healthy end, thank you for unpacking that, because I hope you caught that. If you didn't, rewind and go back through what she just shared, because I think that pushing through, to that gold, so to speak, man, there's just value there that you're probably not going to get to any other way. So maybe I do agree with you. I don't know, I'm getting closer.
Has so much to do with how you fight and what you're doing in the fight. Like if you're, when you go into a fight, if you're trying to understand the other point of view, that's a healthy fight. That's a worthwhile fight.
If you're just trying to prove your point.
If I'm just trying to be right.
Just be right. Yeah.
And I think a lot of times people are just trying to be right.
Yeah, trying to be right, trying to just make their point. You don't care about the other person.
Yeah.
And that's not going to work. Yeah. So I'm very curious now that we opened this can of worms. I'm curious, like with Jesus in the temple, there's some insight there, and the Holy Spirit would show us that and some study of the word. But, Jesus is a great example. And, so many times we saw him be so caring. And, I think about the woman caught in adultery, and he was so gentle. We saw this with a friend of ours, right? Dave DeWell did this years ago. You and I watched. And if you knew this man, he was flamboyant. He was big. Everything was over the top. And he ministered that way, right? And I'll never forget watching him. That was back in the day when prayer lines were real common, right? And he was just going down praying from one person to the next.
And he's doing stuff like, big, physically doing big things as well as loud, as well as vocal, all the things.
All the things. And he literally was doing that. And then he came to this next girl and everything changed. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
He got gentle.
And we knew this
quiet.
girl, and she needed that.
Yes.
But it shifted, and
and why do I bring that up now? Because to me, that's an example of fight. In a weird way, maybe, but he was more interested in getting to that good stuff and bringing what that person needed than doing his show.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Where the show worked with lots of people, but he came to her and he was like, totally changed. So I think with fighting, I don't know, maybe, I hope I made that point well, but it kind of comes in that I'm like, man, I'm fighting with you, but I'm listening, I'm learning, I'm wanting to know what is in this that you're seeing and valuing. And
for sure.
We see that in Jesus all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, so there's healthy ways to fight. There's miserable, evil ways to fight. And I think that the follow-up and the piece that I hope you see is, how do I choose the battle?
Yeah.
What is important to me?
Right.
Why is it important? Choosing that battle. Secondarily, how am I going to do this? Like, how am I approaching this fight?
Right.
And thirdly, how am I fighting all the way through to understand the other person? And or maybe it's not that kind of fight. Maybe it's the kind of fight of flipping the tables and hoping somebody learns something. Right. And that too can be spirit-led and okay. And clearly, so I think that's important as well. Like just like understanding what is this fight for? What am I trying to accomplish? There's a little bit of speculation when Jesus overturned the tables. I don't know this. We don't know if Jesus walked around with a whip, but where did that whip come from? Did he go make the whip? Did he just go find a whip?
Wow.
Was he carrying a whip?
Yeah.
But my point in that is, why does that matter? Is because it says that there had to be some thought.
Yeah.
Like it was premeditated.
It wasn't blind rage.
Yeah, it wasn't just blind rage.
Right.
Now, if he just was carrying a whip, maybe, but I don't think, we don't see pictures of Jesus carrying the whip, and I know we don't have actual pictures, but like people.
It wasn't in the movie.
People,
Good one.
I'm saying.
Let me see if I don't have a picture of that.
I'm saying, people drawing pictures of Jesus. And I know, like, people drawing pictures today never saw Jesus, right? But we have to presume at some point these drawings did come from somebody who had some sense of him, whether he was carrying a whip or not. We never see him carrying a whip. Also, Scripture never tells us about
there you go, word pictures, see?
Carrying a whip. So all of that, my point is, when Jesus flipped those tables, it was probably premeditated.
Yeah, it was intentional. Yeah.
It was thought through. And I think that's huge when it comes to
fighting.
It
is huge.
Making sure that you think through it. Why am I taking on this fight? How am I going to resolve this fight? What do I need to know? What's the end of the fight? Like actually being intentional and considering what is the point of the fight and why.
Yeah.
So.
No, that's so good. And thank you for the laughter too. I'm thinking of a situation right now. We've got some friends they're in a fight. I'm thinking about, I hope they're going about it well. I think they are. Our voice has been able to be in there a little bit, but it's more than just two people. It's not just a couple, but there's several people and they're trying to work together and there's issues and they're bringing these things to each other.
He's talking to me like I know what he's talking about.
I'm trying to be vague because I don't want you to know either, because it's not my job. But I think my point is just these things come up for all of us. And I'm thinking about their situation. There are some things worth fighting for there. Yeah. And I hope that they can navigate it well, because that'll be a beautiful thing to see the gifts, the talents, the dreams, and when I say talents, I mean those things that they bring to the table within that organization are huge, all of them. And so being able to fight through that to find where we can make this work is so worth it. So Yeah, I hope everybody can learn to fight better.
Yes.
And learn to
Yes.
fight a little more, maybe.
Have
if
a
you're like
reason,
me.
a purpose.
Yeah, because there's plenty of things out there worth fighting for. So, listen, you're worth fighting for, and that's why we're doing these awkward conversation videos. It's worth it to us to bring these things up, to be willing to venture into maybe arenas and topics and concepts that maybe it's hard for people to navigate through.
Yeah.
So that's why we're trying to bring you these things. Hopefully they're food for thought, things that you can carry forward and do something with in your own life and find value in them as a result. So you're worth fighting for. That's why we're here. Thank you so much for watching another awkward conversation. I think she's already filming. Hey, do you like us? We would really like it if you would like us. We're not needy, but hey, like, subscribe. I don't even know 100%
Comment.
sure what that means. No, I actually do. Comment.
Ring
Like
the
us.
bell.
Ring the bell. Help other people see there's good stuff here.